I don't know when Daryl started acting like a guest when he came back to his house. This season, Michonne was so cold and unfeeling that millions of viewers began to hate the former goddess of war. Eventually, for old time's sake, the 4 Daryls were allowed into the Alexandria safe zone. Henry's wound was tended to in the infirmary. Michonne remained cautious though, deeming Lydia a potential threat. Staying here for any longer might jeopardize the safety of Alexandria's safe zone. Daryl says that once Henry's wounds are taken care of, they'll head to the kingdom. Despite Michonne's frosty demeanor, Connie approached and thanked her. Without Michonne, their integration into the hilltop wouldn't have been possible. After a while, Henry's wound was treated. Luckily, no bones were harmed, and a few stitches sufficed. Daryl came to the lake and sat with Judith. This is a very cozy picture. How many of you remember Judith's first milk was fed by Daryl? This tough guy isn't great at expressing his emotions, but if the day came when Rick's child was in danger, Daryl might even lay down his life to save them. Although Judith is young and hasn't spent much time with Uncle Daryl, she already considers him family. Judith, smart and kind-hearted, has a hunch that Henry's gotten into some trouble, and Uncle Daryl is aiding them. Judith wants to help, but her mom is too strong to let her. Yet, Daryl tells Judith, "Your mom is right. Ensuring this place survives allows you and your brother to live carefree lives. That's what matters most." However, Judith doesn't agree. She'd heard Negan talk about everyone banding together to fight the saviors, and about her brother's bravery and kindness. So, Judith believes that, whatever the trouble, unity will prevail once again. Daryl doesn't respond, just sits there in silence. At night, the group prepares to leave. They're heading to the kingdom, and they don't want to burden Alexandria's safe zone. Daryl doesn't complain about Michonne. Daryl had been a witness to Jocelyn's incident, so he understood why Michonne was so cautious. And so, the 4 of them set out once more, hoping this journey will be smoother without further obstacles. Judith watched them leave and was really angry with her mom. During the family meal, Judith was also listless and kept poking at her plate. Late into the night, Michonne tossed and turned, unable to find sleep. She knew Judith was upset with her. Unable to sleep, Michonne went to the door of her room, knocked gently and said, "Judith, I know you're angry. Can we talk about it? There's something I want to tell you." Michonne's intention was to discuss the Jocelyn incident from the past. Though Judith was there at the time, she's likely forgotten about it by now. However, when Michonne opened the door, the room was empty. Michonne searched for Judith throughout the night, but couldn't find her until dawn. Finally, she went to the cell to ask Negan if he'd seen Judith. Negan claimed he hadn't seen her since yesterday. Michonne getting angry, she thought that Judith must be like this because of something Negan had said to her. Sarcastically, Negan remarked, "Now you care? I just talked about old times with her." He mentioned Rick's fortitude and Carl's bravery and kindness. Michonne didn't believe any of it.
She hates that you're not letting new people in.
No, you don't get to talk to me about Carl. And you definitely don't get to tell me what she wants or feels. She is my daughter.
That is exactly right. She is your daughter, so she has her own ideas about how things should be. Oh, you didn't come down here because you're curious. You came down here because you have no idea where she is. Maybe she's off petting a horse, or maybe she is exactly like her mother and she is not taking shit lying down.
That very statement triggered something in Michonne's mind. She hurriedly left and returned home, bursting into Judith's room. Opening the box with the revolver, Michonne found only a note. "Mom, I'm sorry, but I have to go after them. Friends need help. Your daughter, Judith." Filled with anxiety, Michonne mounted her horse and rode in the direction of the kingdom, desperately trying to catch up. Soon, she spotted Judith's small bicycle parked at the roadside, and there was a horde of zombies in front of her. Michonne was killing zombies as she walked. At this moment, Michonne is going crazy and she prays that nothing happens to Judith. It was a blessing in disguise, but Judith was fine. Michonne hugged her daughter tightly. The feeling of holding her in her arms was real. Judith was a little afraid to face Michonne after her mistake. Michonne didn't chastise her. She decided to find a place to talk about the Jocelyn incident so Judith could understand why she was doing what she was doing.
And I was standing right there. And it was like you didn't know me. For a second, I thought I was too late. I thought that you changed and that I'd lost you.
The scene Michonne referred to may or may not be familiar to everyone. Back then, in order to save Judith, she had to take the lives of several children. In that moment, the look Judith gave her was filled with unfamiliarity.
You didn't look like you. Because of the blood. Then I saw it was. And I was happy you found me.
You remember that? What else?
Jocelyn, her kids, they were nice to us the whole time. I remember they made it all seem like a game, so we went with them. But she was a bad person. They all were. It's why you did what you did.
This was completely unexpected for Michonne. She believed that Judith, being so young, wouldn't remember, so she never brought it up again. It was this incident that turned Michonne into the cold and ruthless person she became. From a mother's perspective, she simply couldn't bear the feeling of helplessness and losing child. Upon returning to the Alexandria safe zone, they stood before Carl's grave. Michonne recounted the events that followed the Jocelyn incident. At that time, most of the people in the community had decided to be responsible only for the people in their own community, so she too became apathetic, though it wasn't the society Rick and Carl aspired to build. At the very least, it ensured the lasting stability of Alexandria's safe zone and protected the children from harm. Judith's actions today and her words had begun to change Michonne's icy demeanor. Michonne realized that she was right to keep her children safe, but she couldn't limit what they could become. They really should protect and help those who are not blood but are more family. So, mother and daughter mounted the carriage and set off toward the kingdom. The journey ahead was long, but their purpose was clear: to help their friends. At that moment, two zombies appeared in the woods outside the kingdom. A closer look reveals that they are all human disguises. Naturally, these were the Whisperer's spies, scattered throughout the area. Coincidentally, they caught sight of the carriage entering the community. There was undoubtedly some event or gathering taking place here. Inside the kingdom, several communities of survivors gathered together. Ezekiel was delivering the opening speech for the inaugural market. In his speech, he mentions Rick and Jesus as two people who deserve to be remembered by everyone in the development of civilization in this region. Without them, everyone would still be living under the rule of the saviors. Without them, the major communities wouldn't be experiencing the peace they had today. Without them, the communities would not be as peaceful as they are today. Life had to go on. The market was also set to become a bridge for further cultural development in the region. After the opening ceremony, Ezekiel suddenly noticed Carol, Luke, and a few others getting ready in the distance. Since the market had already begun, and Henry and the others hadn't returned, they were preparing to go out and search. Ezekiel exchanged a few words with the gathering before coming to bid farewell to his wife. As a father, he should have gone to Henry as well, but the market can't go unsupervised. Before the couple could exchange more words, Kelly was urging them to hurry up. He was very concerned about her sister. As they were about to leave, the gate swung open, and to their sight appeared the dog in six figures. Seeing them, all four of Luke's group broke into smiles. Carol and Ezekiel, of course, spotted their son and Michonne. Henry limped towards his mom with his own stick and an air of manliness about him.
You can't ever run away like that again. Not ever again.
Okay, I won't.
Although he had only been away for 2 weeks, Henry had obviously matured a lot. With teary eyes, Carol embraced her son. After the hug, Carol noticed another loved one, Daryl. The two of them had the best chance to be a couple, but it was a miss. But their kinship is still there.
Michonne,
I was in the neighborhood, so. Do you remember us?
Judith. You're Carol and you're the king. I've been drawing pictures of you since I was little. Your hair got really long.
It did.
Tara then approached, but her smile froze as she laid eyes on Lydia. She questioned Daryl, asking if the plan wasn't just to bring back Henry. Why was Lydia here too? A silence fell over the scene. Only Michonne spoke with seriousness. Let's gather the leaders here. We have something important to discuss. In a short while, the leaders from the 4 communities convened in the meeting room. Before getting down to business, Michonne apologized and said, I know I'd had some disagreements with some of you in this room, but I care about each one of you. During that time, my focus was solely on protecting my family, doing what was right for my people, but I've come to my senses. The future of the Alexandria safe zone is not about remaining stagnant, but about moving forward together with everyone. I'm sorry for not recognizing this earlier, but I'm here now. Carol and Ezekiel nodded their heads. They were all family and had no axe to grind. Following this, Gabriel stepped forward to speak, saying, Our Alexandria Safe Zone Committee has voted internally and decided to offer Lydia asylum. She's now one of us. We hope you can join us in this decision. Tara raised a concern. If Alpha seeks retaliation, she'd likely target the hilltop, not Alexandria's safe zone. I need to do what's right for my people.
And look, when she came to my gates, I asked her to run away. And when she didn't, I was angry.
Then you know I'm not okay with this.
I do. I also know why Rick didn't trust me when I showed up at the gates of the prison. And how people didn't trust you after seeing you on the other side of the governor's firing line.
I was gonna kill you on sight when you washed up on our shore.
To this, Tara found herself momentarily speechless. In the end, the 4 major communities collectively decided to shelter Lydia. Simultaneously, each community would send personnel to the hilltop to guard against any retaliation from the Whisperers, and they're planning to leave today. From this point on, the 4 major communities once again formed a united front. Ezekiel even brought out a charter, which had previously been drawn up by Rick. It was akin to a joint community contract, though it was signed 5 years later than intended. Just as they were signing the charter, within the hilltop, for individuals prepared to set out, they also wanted to join the festivities at the market. A married couple drove the carriage. It was their wedding anniversary, and they wished to find something special. They were about to reach the kingdom when they were attacked. The carriage overturned, and the 4 individuals were brutally murdered by the Whisperers. Alpha took a liking to the woman's beautiful golden hair and proceeded to cut off her scalp. Within the kingdom, the 4 major communities signed the charter. Lydia and Henry felt a weight lifted and began exploring the market. Undoubtedly, it was a grand event. Some people put up their own stuff in exchange. Some sought out blacksmiths to forge weapons. Luke and Alden took the stage, showcasing their talents. Eugene demonstrated the wonders of science to children. It's a sight that would be hard to believe in a post-apocalyptic world. Of course, some couldn't participate in the upcoming market. These were the individuals selected in the meeting, preparing to head to the hilltop to prevent the Whisperers' attack. As they ventured a bit further, they came across an overturned carriage ahead. From the items scattered around, it appeared to be from the hilltop. Bloodstains marked the ground, but no bodies were visible. It was highly likely that the Whisperers had struck. Daryl examined the traces on the ground. It seemed the individuals were dragged away from this direction. The current dilemma was whether the abducted individuals were still alive. Pursuing them might yield a chance for rescue, but it was also possible that the sadistic foes were seeking revenge against the hilltop. In the end, Michonne came up with a compromise. The 4 of them would track, while the rest continued on the road. Within the kingdom's market, a blonde beauty in a green dress appeared. Curiously, she took in her surroundings. This woman was none other than Alpha, who had infiltrated the market. Her attire, including the golden hair, was all from the woman she had killed. As Alpha examined the scene before her, the Earl couple walked past her with their child. Alpha hurriedly pulled down the brim of her hat to avoid being recognized by the 2. After they left, Alpha continued to hang out. Ahead, the sight of 4 banners on the wall captured her attention. This made Alpha realize that the region was home to 4 communities. As she scrutinized the scene, Ezekiel approached her and greeted her. Ezekiel found her somewhat unfamiliar, having never seen her before. Thankfully, Alpha improvised, claiming she had recently joined Alexandria's safe zone, so not recognizing her was normal. Ezekiel didn't suspect anything and warmly introduced her to the market. That night, the kingdom's grand event began. They had managed to acquire a movie projection setup. People from all 4 neighborhoods were waiting in their seats, especially the children, who had never seen such a novelty since they were born. Watching a movie in the apocalypse was something people hadn't dared to dream of. It became a unique feature of the kingdom. Lydia also sat in her seat and waited for Henry. 10 minutes passed, and still, Henry hadn't appeared. Lydia didn't think much of it. Lydia didn't believe anything would happen to Henry within the kingdom, but at that moment, a figure sat next to Lydia. Lydia was so engrossed in what she was watching that she didn't notice, until the figure put a hand on her hand. Lydia turned round and breathed heavily, but she could only pretend to be calm. Later, the mother and daughter stepped outside. Alpha was furious, seeing her daughter immersed in this false happiness. Alpha felt Lydia had betrayed the Whisperer's beliefs. Thus, Alpha demanded that Lydia come back with her immediately. Lydia, with a resolute expression, told her mother that the people here were kind. They care about each other, and they're even willing to fight you to protect me. Leave now. Stay away from my life. I don't want them to kill you either. Despite her evil, Alpha did indeed love her daughter, though her mindset had twisted in the apocalypse, altering the way she expressed it. Knowing that his daughter had made up her mind, Alpha turned around and left the kingdom, heartbroken. In the forest, Daryl and the others continued their search and tracking efforts. Following the trail of blood on the ground, they had ventured quite a distance. However, the blood trail suddenly diverged into 3 directions here, which made no sense at all. Daryl realizes something is wrong and decides to go back in case it's a trap. Just as they were turning around, 2 zombies emerged from the nearby woods. These were clearly the 2 individuals who had gone missing from the hilltop. Yumiko and Daryl quickly took care of them with arrows. After dealing with the zombies, they heard movement in the nearby woods again. Michonne cautioned everyone to be vigilant and watch their hands closely, just in case there were whisperers among them. After killing a few zombies, even more started approaching them. It was evident that they were in a trap. Daryl urged them to quickly return to the main road, but when they turned around, there was a large group of zombies coming the same way they came. This was getting eerie. Zombies blocked every direction. They had no choice but to draw their weapons and eliminate them all. 10 minutes later, the ground was littered with zombie corpses. But then, Yumiko froze. A whisperer emerged, wearing the skin of a member from the hilltop. It was downright chilling. It's not over. More and more whisperers appeared from all around and surrounded them once again, all of them with knives in their hands. Faced with the numerous whisperers, fighting back seemed like a dead end. Daryl had no option but to drop his weapon, and so, the 4 of them became captives. Alpha gradually approached them. However, to everyone's surprise, Alpha spoke. "You think it's because of my daughter? This is our new camp. 4 fools stumbled into us during the day. We had to kill them." And Michonne, not to be outdone, said, "Our 4 communities have sheltered Lydia. If you want to forcefully take her back, be prepared for our joint retaliation." Alpha, instead of being afraid, pulled out his pistol and said,
Your group is in no position to threaten me. That is a habit that needs to be broken. Come with me. Just you.
Daryl followed Alpha without fear. He wanted to see what this woman was up to. Soon, dawn began to break. The 2 of them arrived at a deep pit, where something seemed to be present. As Daryl continued to walk, he suddenly froze. The pit was filled with countless zombies, an overwhelming and horrifying sight. It was truly terrifying. Daryl couldn't help but inwardly marvel. Was this the source of the Whisperer's confidence?
The only reason you and your friends are alive is because I let you live.
What do you want?
Nothing.
Alpha answered his question. "You don't have what I want. I've observed your way of life and walked your streets. It's a joke. Really, our whisperers follow the laws of nature, and we will survive." Daryl couldn't help but scorn her words, thinking that these were just nonsense theories she used to manipulate her followers. Alpha continued, "They follow me because I am Alpha. As a leader, it is vital to maintain prestige. That's why I've done those things." Alpha's tone had a hint of compassion in her voice as she spoke. Daryl had a sinking feeling. Could it be that this woman had already attacked their communities? Without disclosing her actions, Alpha turned to Daryl, issuing a veiled threat. "Your friends at the camp are safe, but tell them that if they trespass on my territory again, don't blame me for leading a horde of zombies to pay them a visit. Listen carefully, the fractured interstate divides it. To the south is my territory, and I've marked the northern boundary for you. You'll see it when you leave. Now you can go. Your friends are waiting for you up north." Now that he could leave, Daryl didn't dawdle any longer, and soon he saw Carol at the top of the hill. Alpha hadn't harmed them, but was this woman truly as benevolent as she seemed? After their departure, Alpha stood somberly in the woods. She understood that after this incident, she and her daughter would only grow farther apart. Beta wanted to console Alpha, but his attempt was rebuffed. Alpha wanted to be alone. Coincidentally, an unlucky whisperer witnessed this moment. With no one watching, a tear escaped her eye. Alpha noticed and looked back. Then Alpha hooked her finger. Alpha didn't want anyone to witness her vulnerability. Only a cold-hearted Alpha could lead the whisperers. Daryl and the four of them returned the way they came, but then on the road they see Siddiq tied to a tree. What was going on? Wasn't he at the marketplace? Siddiq was obviously injured and couldn't speak for a while, just pointing weakly to the distance. As they followed his gaze, their hearts sank. A row of severed heads was lined up neatly on the hilltop. Although it is hard to see who they are, they must be members of the four communities. They walked towards the top of the mountain little by little. So this is what Alpha meant when she said she had to do something. This is also the demarcation line she was talking about. As they got closer, the faces of the heads became clearer and clearer. Even Michonne, who had been through so much, found it hard to accept. The first two heads belonged to the leader and a member of the Highwaymen. The third was DJ from Alexandria's safe zone. In fact, people had gone missing since Alpha's appearance at the marketplace yesterday. This girl, for example, couldn't find her friends when she tried. Earl's wife is also missing. The friend that this teenager from the hilltop was desperately looking for has now appeared on a stick. And Alden, who was performing on stage, also noticed that his girlfriend Enid was missing. As they reached the next head, both Michonne and Siddiq broke down. Daryl turned his gaze to the last head.
No! I can't find Henry.
Just look at me. It was Henry's. Oh God, it was suffocating. Seeing friends and loved ones murdered, their heads displayed before them, it was an overwhelming and heart-wrenching sight. The place where the stick had been stuck became the dividing line for the Whisperers and a place of sadness for all of them. Back at the kingdom, Siddiq stood on a platform, recounting the events. He had been one of the captives. The Whisperers deliberately kept him alive so that he could tell the crowd what happened and spread the fear. After their silent abduction, the two members of the Highwaymen, along with DJ, tried to rescue them. Others joined the resistance. Nobody was clinging to life. Instead, they united to protect each other. But just when everyone thought they'd escaped, Alpha came with more men, and then the tragedy unfolded. This time, no one suggested revenge, because sometimes one has to endure.